Hello everybody, my name is Abby and I have obsessive compulsive disorder, which is more commonly known by the acronym OCD. I decided I wanted to make this channel because I've recently discovered several different YouTube videos and other channels by people with various mental and physical disorders, and I just found it really inspirational to see these people being so open about the struggles that they face and how they live their lives day to day, and I found that it seemed to be pretty inspirational for other people too, just judging by what I'd read in the comments. So my next thought was, wow, I would love to see one of these videos from the point of view of somebody who has OCD like me. And when I did a quick YouTube search, I found that there wasn't a lot out there. The only YouTube videos that I really saw about OCD were mostly about the scientific side of it, what causes it, how to cope with it, things like that, different strategies, which I think are very, very useful, but there wasn't anything that was very personal. So that's kind of my hope with this channel. I do recognize that my OCD is very different from probably most other people's OCD. It really does take a variety of forms. For those of you who don't have it or don't know a ton about it, OCD is not always the person who is washing their hands multiple times a day for long periods of time. And it's not always the person who is counting everything or who has to make sure that they don't step on a crack in the sidewalk, like in the movie As Good As It Gets, if any of you have seen that. It can look like that, but a lot of times it doesn't. So I'm not trying to cover everything with these videos. I know that I won't be able to understand everyone's experience, and my experience is very different from a lot of people's experiences, but my hope is just that it could be helpful to other people who are struggling with OCD or who just want to know more about it, to see someone like me and hear about the different things that I struggle with, my take on certain topics like relationships or other mental illness, living on your own, things like that. And on the other hand, I thought, you know, if people want to reach out to me, let me know what they think, give me other topics, or just tell me how they've experienced their OCD, then that would also be really cool for me to find a greater community. So I just want to put that out there because this channel is going to be more anecdotal than scientific and data-based, I guess you could say. I will have portions of video and maybe whole videos themselves that do cover certain topics like what causes OCD and things like that, but the majority of what I'm going to be showing and sharing is just going to be about my life and how I am affected by this disorder. So with that being said, I do want to go into a little bit about what OCD is for those of you who don't know, or those of you who may be wondering if you have it. So according to the International OCD Foundation, OCD involves two parts: obsessions and compulsions. That's why it's called obsessive compulsive disorder. So the obsessions are, quote, unwanted intrusive thoughts, images, or urges that trigger intensely distressing feelings. So for example, if we look at somebody who may have OCD based around a fear of germs, of getting sick, of getting other people sick, when they touch something, they may feel all of a sudden like they're contaminated. And whereas someone who without OCD may be able to just wash their hands once and feel like that's enough, even though they know that there are probably still some germs on their hands, they're able to live with that uncertainty. Someone with OCD is still going to have that thought of, I'm contaminated, I'm not clean. It's not going to go away just from washing their hands one time. It's this sort of loop of repetitive thoughts. I'm not clean, I'm not clean, I'm not clean. And even if they try to ignore it, try to go about their day, those thoughts are still going to be in the back of their mind, if not at the forefront of their mind. And something that I discovered recently is that the most important part of this definition is actually the trigger intensely distressing feelings. So that is really what helps to define OCD. This idea that the thoughts that you're having are distressing to you. So if you're somebody who, taking the sort of stereotypical example of someone with OCD, if you sit down at your desk every day and straighten your pencils, and that's something that you do once a day, you do it once, you're done, you're not bothered by it anymore, that's not necessarily OCD. Now, like I said, it does look different for different people, but generally perfectionism does not mean that you have obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, if you are straightening your pencils and it just doesn't look right and you can't get it right and it's bothering you, that would be more in line with the common understanding of what OCD is. And that's a very basic example. Like, that still doesn't necessarily mean that you have OCD, but that's sort of an example of the difference between having thoughts and having these really distressing thoughts. Another part of it is the intrusive thoughts. So I didn't realize when I was a child that other people had intrusive thoughts, that other people could also be walking around and think, oh, what if I just kicked that baby? Or what if I punched my boss because I'm really mad at him right now? Or what if I just drove this car off a cliff or ran someone over? Things like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've heard, a lot of people, when they get these kinds of thoughts, if they don't have OCD, then they're more likely to think, oh, that's a strange thought, or even, go more deeply into the thought and imagine carrying out such a thought. But then they let it go and they go about the rest of their day. For me, and for a lot of people with OCD, those kinds of thoughts are terrifying, and we have a harder time understanding that those thoughts are not who we are. So whenever I would get a thought like, I want to run somebody over, then all of a sudden I would start freaking out. What if I do run somebody over? Does that mean that I want to run somebody over? Does that mean that I'm a serial killer? And it took me a long time, and still sometimes is difficult for me, to really distinguish between a passing thought and who I am as a person. So the second part of this definition is the compulsion side. Compulsions are behaviors that an individual engages in to attempt to get rid of the obsessions and or decrease his or her or their distress. So the compulsions are the more physical side of things that tend to be portrayed in movies and TV shows. Things like washing your hands, or counting, or locking your door a certain amount of times, flicking the lights on and off a certain amount of times. Another important part of the compulsion definition is that it is something that is time consuming, that keeps you from going about your daily life. So, and again, that idea that it's something that is distressing to you, that causes distress, is very important to the definition of OCD. So for example, if you really love to work out and you work out twice a day, every day, that's not necessarily a compulsion. If you're working out and you still have time to do the things that you want to do, and you still have time to work and to socialize, or maybe working out is your socializing, to be with your loved ones, and you have no problem with it, then that wouldn't be considered OCD, or at least it wouldn't be something that would need to be treated. It's really if you are, say, flicking on the light switch on and off 10 times every time you walk into the room, and that not only is distressing to you because you feel like it's never enough, but it's also taking time out of your day that you could be spending with your family, or maybe it's making you late for meetings. then that would be considered a compulsion that someone might want to deal with and find a way to manage and control. So that's OCD in a nutshell. Like I said, there are many, many different types, and so it's hard to go into everything that OCD is. It is a disorder that can be either caused by genetics or certain traumatic events or triggers that may occur throughout a person's life. I have had OCD since I was a baby, according to my mother, since I was 3 years old, so pretty sure I was born with it. Some of my other relatives also have it, so it's very likely that I just got bad genes. And the other interesting thing about OCD, which I might go into a little bit more in a different video, is that we still don't know too much about it scientifically. So there aren't a lot of medications out there. I don't know if there are any medications that are specifically for OCD. A lot of times people try, and what I've tried are SSRIs, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, which are mainly used to treat anxiety and depression, but they do tend to work to some extent with people with OCD, but OCD is different from anxiety. So I also have anxiety, fun, but the way that I know it's different is that with my general anxiety, there are some moments where I'm just scared and I don't know why. That's how I at least experience my anxiety. I'll be scared and it may last for 30 minutes or 10 minutes and then it goes away and then I'm like, oh, that was weird, and then I move on with my day. Or, you know, maybe I will have anxiety around a certain thing, like I'm afraid to do something. I have social anxiety, so I might be really afraid to talk to strangers, whereas the OCD, it's very repetitive. So very much like I talked about, those thoughts that just won't stop. My mom used to describe it as sort of a broken record. So there may be just one main line of thought that's replaying in your mind over and over again, like that thought, I'm contaminated, I'm contaminated, I'm contaminated. No matter how much you try to rationalize with yourself, it only makes it worse. And then there's the compulsion that generally follows. So that could be like washing your hands, or for somebody with pure OCD like me, that could be looking up on Google, am I a serial killer? Why did I have this thought? And not being satisfied with the answer and going down 5 tabs of Google because you're trying to find an answer that makes you feel like you know for sure that you're not going to become a serial killer, but nothing is convincing enough to you. That's OCD. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's just a very basic intro. I guess I should probably talk a little bit more about myself. So I am 23 years old. I live in St. Louis, Missouri currently. I've only lived here for a couple months and I don't know how long I'm going to be here, maybe just for the rest of the year. I really enjoy traveling and I still don't know exactly what I want to do with my life. So I'm gonna be going all over the place to try to figure that out. So St. Louis for now, and later, who knows. But yeah, let's see. I really love animals and I love reading. I'm a huge nerd. I like playing guitar. I really like music. And I use she, her pronouns. That's all I got right now. If you want to know anything else, like I said, just ask me, leave a comment. I'm really excited to see what maybe comments and questions you guys might have, or just to see who's interested in these videos. So I hope it helps. All right, take care, you guys. Remember to be kind to yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.